season. Listen, don't you give up. Don't throw in the towel. Don't say forget about it. You are in well-doing. And when you're in well-doing, that means God is going to reward you. God is bringing you to his promise. God said, hearken unto his voice and keep his commandment. And when you're obeying God in that sense, you are in well-doing. God says, what? Be not weary in well-doing, which means what? Don't second guess yourself when you know you're doing what is right. He said, be not weary in well-doing, for in due season you shall reap if you faint not. The enemy is coming to you to whisper in your ear to get you to faint. But you got to remember that God said you ain't going to faint. You're not. How do we know? Because God says where? They that wait upon the Lord. Waiting upon the Lord means you're trusting in him with all of your heart and you're not leaning to your own understanding. But in all your ways, you're acknowledging him and he's directing your path. And when God directs you, you ain't going to slip. That's why God says what? That he will enlarge your steps so that you will not slip. Exactly. So God said those that wait upon him, he's going to renew your strength. You will mount up with wings as eagles. You will run and not get weary, and you will walk and not faint. So don't let the enemy trick you to make you think that what you're doing is in vain, that your well-doing is not counted for, because God sees it. He sees it. He knows that you're being obedient. He knows that you're in well-doing, that you're doing what is upright. And listen, don't let nobody, and when I say nobody, I mean the enemy, because we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We wrestle against principalities, okay? God says what? The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of every stronghold. Which means what? When the enemy approaches you, however shape, form, or fashion, his job is to get you what? Unstable. He wants you to think that the process that you're in is in vain. And if you listen to that, then you will indeed miss out on the promises of God, because God sees your well-doing and he's going to reward you for it. So don't you give up. Stay steadfast and unmovable, always abounding in the works of God. Keep God first and continue to keep God, his word, on the table of your heart, bound around your neck and in your mouth. And watch how you will be able to stand firm and be bold as a lion. Because that's what God said, the righteous, those who are upright. And the upright just means that you have a relationship with God. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with history. It has nothing to do with perception. It's all a spirit thing. Spiritual. That's why God says, try the spirit by the spirit. If you're being tried by something carnal mindedness, or walking in the flesh, then those who are questioning you, asking you from a carnal mindset or from a fleshly walk, they're never going to understand what you're speaking, because it's carnal and spiritual. God says, try the spirit by the spirit. So until you are approached from a spirit side of God, then you need to brush everything off. It's not going to make sense to everybody. And you can't be worried about if it makes sense to anybody, regardless of who it is. You just got to keep the walk. And when I say the walk, just being upright. Ain't nothing wrong with doing the right thing, regardless of what you call it. As long as you're walking in the will of God, walking according to his word, hearkening to his voice, and keeping his commandment, you will indeed reap. You will embark in your due season. And some of y'all, your due season is now. Don't let the enemy come and snatch it from you. He can't have it. You've worked too hard. You've been in well-doing for too long, for so long. And God is saying he is going to reward you. I hope y'all got this. But if you didn't get it, rewind this thing and watch again. But in the meantime, in between time, if you take just a little bit of what I'm telling you and apply to your life to the best of your ability, you won't ever have to mask a smile. Why? Because your smiles will always be genuine. Listen, your due season is here. Reap it. It's not in vain. Don't you give up. Don't throw in the towel. God got you. Ciao.